Welcome to the We Can Do It Women movement, where women 60 and wiser step into the spotlight and make the rest of their lives the best of their lives. I'm your host, Debra Morrison, a wealth building expert and champion for extraordinary women just like you. For over 47 years, I've helped women secure their financial futures, and now I'm on a mission to ignite a revolution. Yes, showing the world that at 60, 70, and beyond, some of us might be a nickel slower, yet we're all just getting started. And our esteemed guest today comes to us from White Bear Lake, Minnesota, Patty Hall. And Patty is the co-founder and president of H2O for Life, a non-profit organization based in Minnesota dedicated to educating youth in educational and fundraising activities to address the global water crisis. She launched H2O for Life in 2007 after a 30-year teaching career, initiating a service learning program that grew from a single school to hundreds of schools participating across the United States and internationally. Patty, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so proud to be here this morning. Thank you.
We're so pleased to have you, and I want to give some of our viewers the a little bit of backstory, as many of our viewers do know you. And yet, a little known fact about Patty is that before she founded H2O for Life, which is an amazing organization, she traveled several times to Kenya. Yes, in the early 2000s as a teacher, helping build health centers and contribute medical supplies to clinics. It was during one of those trips in 2006 that a Kenyan driver and friend asked her for help with a water project in Kathunga village. And tell us about that conversation, Patty.
Well, I started traveling to Kenya in 1995, and Kenya was very different than it is today, very rural. And we were just so excited to be there. And quick backstory, my
Yes,
mom was a huge Tarzan fan when she was growing up, Johnny Weissmuller, the old black and white movies. And
yes.
she always wanted to go see where Tarzan lived.
Oh,
So that initiated our first trip to go to Kenya, was just because my mom really wanted to go there. And after my father passed away, I said, let's just do this and make it happen. So we went to Kenya and brought my daughter, who was at that time about 16, along with. And we fell in love with the country and fell in love with the people. And that's what led us to come back and work in villages and help with some healthcare projects.
amazing. And that just gives me chills because, of course, today I'm wearing my little leopard print, and I feel like I'm like kind of, two steps out of the safari. I too have been to Kenya, but not the extent that you have. As a matter of fact, I have been to near the Eritrean border, and then I went back to Africa to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. But in the more rural aspects where the camps and so forth exist, I was really brought face forward aware of this water crisis, and it is significant. And I am so eager to hear more about how you and your organization have contributed to people having water without spending the entire day walking to get it, women carrying it and carrying it back to their villages. So, talk to us about the Kahunga village, how you centered in there, and what was the genesis of your first steps to get involved. Was it this request from this driver?
Yes, well, I continued going to Kenya for many times. And on one of our first trips, Christopher Matuku was our driver, just hired from the company that was taking us out to this rural area. And my mom was with me, and he just treated her so beautifully. She was probably 75 at the time, and he just was so solicitous of taking care of all of her needs, and we just became good friends. So every time we went back to Kenya, whether we planned the trips or if we went on a volunteer trip, we hired Christopher to drive our vehicle. And he just became a dear friend. Didn't know much about his village other than what the little glimpses that we got of him telling us about it. And right before I was going back to my teaching position in August in 2006, actually, he wrote me a letter and said, our kids and our animals are dying because we don't have water. And if you understand the rural culture,
Oh,
kids are, of course, extremely important, but so are their animals because it's their livelihood.
that's absolutely.
So he said, do you know anybody who could help us? And I thought about the fact that there's churches around that raise funds for international work, but I had 800 middle school kids attending Highview Middle School. And I thought, I wonder if we put something together, if the kids could raise funds to help make this happen. Now, that was the starting point, but of course, you have to jump through a lot of hoops to make that happen. I had to go to the superintendent of the district and say, can we raise funds to do this? He had to talk to the attorneys. There was all kinds of hoops to jump through. But they said, well, sure, go ahead and try it. So the
Yes.
goal for this project, number one, I didn't really understand what it was going to cost. I've never done anything like this. And I said, could you please send me what the project's going to look like and what the cost might be? Now, this is through like snail mail because there
Oh,
wasn't
yes.
very good communication at the time. So he sent this diagram of a sand dam, which I had never heard of. And fortunately, in my middle school, one of the young gals that I knew, her dad worked with Engineers Without Borders. So I called him and said, could you take a look at this? Can you tell me, is this project viable? Is it something that a community can do? And how would we proceed? And he looked it over and said, this is a great project for a seasonal river that will provide water for years to come through the excavation that they do. There's a lot of detail that goes into a sand dam, but the communities are very smart. So my husband, who's a pilot for Delta Airlines, we talked about it, and I said, what if the kids could raise half? Because it was going to be $7,000. And I didn't know if kids could raise that. I'd never done any fundraising with my students. So he said, well, if the kids raise half, we could match it.
Oh,
So at least I took a sigh of relief because I really wanted to get this project done.
yes.
But it was a magical year. I had several teachers. I was a special ed teacher, so I had a small band of kids that I was mainstreaming into classrooms. So I was into many classrooms throughout the school. And I had a couple of teachers that I asked if they would help me launch this in their classrooms because they would see all the kids throughout the day. So
Of
I did
course.
many presentations so that everybody in the school heard about this idea. And I was at a faculty meeting and I said to all the rest of the teachers sitting there, if you hear kids talking about some project in Kenya, it's because we're going to try to raise funds for a water project. And one teacher stood up and said, well, we all want to be part of this.
Oh,
And that was what was the highlight because the whole school became engaged in this project. The music teacher added songs that were in a different language for her concerts. The art teacher took on projects that were projects from Kenya. People talked about it, kids got engaged. And the beautiful thing was that our school became caring and more compassionate with each other. It
of
really did change our
course.
school climate.
Of
And, that was something I looked at after the fact. I probably didn't see it as we were doing it. But then after the school year ended, I saw the amazing things that happened within our own school. And the kids raised $13,000, not
nothing.
$3,500. So the village was able to do two parts for the sand dam. So they put two sand dams across a dry river. And just briefly, it's excavating where they layer rock, sand, gravel, rock, sand, gravel, rock, sand, gravel. And when it rains, instead of all the water just rushing past and going out to sea, it goes into the ground. If you built a sandcastle as a kid and you build a little moat around a sandcastle and the water rises up, that's exactly what it was like. So this was not purified water.
Oh,
It
yes.
was people going down and being able to dig a hole in the sand, collect the water they needed year round. But it was plentiful water that they had to boil to drink, but it gave them water for their agriculture and to live. So it made a huge difference in those communities.
It made a life or death
Yeah,
difference.
it changed everything. Now finishing that project, I thought I was one and done. I really had no aspirations to do project number two, but I went to a conference. This is just, how things happen. It's
I
just
do.
one thing layers on the next and it just happens. And I went to a conference in Albuquerque, New Mexico, a service learning conference where I was sharing my project with other teachers of how kids could do great things.
Yeah.
And I went to lunch through a friend of mine to Santa Fe with a man in Santa Fe who was listening to me tell about this project. And he was a water guy. He was helping some foundations work in Nicaragua and a few in Kenya. And little did I know that he was also a donor.
Ah,
And he said, well, could I get you to do more schools? And it was really a busy year. It was really a lot of work. And I thought, wow, I don't know if I really want to take that on. But he said, well, you think about it. And he said, think about doing this and let's see if we can put something together. So I went to Kenya to visit the project the last day of school, saw this amazing project that was done with the help of our students. And the community was so wonderful and embracing, and you could tell how much the water meant to them.
Oh,
And I went back to the US, and this same man called me. His name is David Douglas. He's a super guy. And he said, Patty, I'd like you to come to Washington, D.C. with me to meet some people. And my daughter was having a baby. And I said, well, if she has the baby before that date, I'll be able to come because I'm not going to miss that baby. She had
absolutely.
the baby on the 21st of July, and I left the morning of the 22nd and went to Washington, D.C. Now, he had arranged a meeting with a group of people at the National Geographic Society, and, it was pretty intimidating. I'm
Right.
a teacher from a school, never done this business stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting around a table with people from the heads of Coca-Cola, Pepsi, other huge organizations that are doing millions of dollars of work in water around the world. And he comes to me and he says, now, Patty, tell them what you're doing. And I
Of
have
course.
one little piece of paper telling what my students did. And I saw a shift at the table where I was looking as I was scraping to raise funds, and they were looking at kids as a new donor. So it was that flip of organizations saw the potential of kids to actually help solve this problem. And I hadn't looked at it
Hold
that
on
way.
one sec. Let me clarify. I mean, I could see them wanting to hook kids on Pepsi Cola and Coca Cola, but the fact is, so these corporate entities and bigwigs and money people were looking to repeat that. They were looking to get the kids as donors. In other words, they were looking to help you go across and involve many more schools. Or am I
It,
wrong?
exactly. All of these people that were around the table were using their company funds to fund water projects all over the world.
Yeah.
Very philanthropically doing this, and always there's always good PR business with that for companies. We
Of
all
course.
get that. But they really looked at the fact that they didn't realize that kids could be so passionate about an issue and
Okay.
that they could raise the funds to do projects.
Okay.
So it was just a shift, even in how I looked at it, is that yes, I'm asking kids to raise funds, but on the other hand, those kids are raising funds because it's doing really good work in the world. And not only is it a service project, but it gives kids a chance to look globally and to look outside their own community borders. Typically, we're asking youth to raise funds for their own community problems and issues, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. But it was such a big shift for kids to look globally and to be doing a school to school connection where they could see that what they were doing here was actually going to change the lives of a whole group of students at a school somewhere else in the world.
Yeah, that expansive vision, especially in a middle school, right?
It started in middle school. We now work K through 12, but middle school is still probably our biggest population.
Yeah, I mean, real formidable years. And I'm just picturing this boardroom with these moneyed CEOs and so forth, and you're walking in as boots on the ground, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
David Douglas is saying, this is our woman, Patty. She is not talking about it. She has done it and is poised to do even more. Although probably, I don't know what was your expectation when you walked in there, what, July 22nd, and you're a new grandma of a few hours. And what was your thought process? Oh my gosh, is this going to genesis into something that's that I'm going to, be completely immersed in? Or did you have any expectations or you're going at Douglas's request?
I really didn't have any idea what was going to come out of it, truthfully. I went there just because he asked me to. I'll step back one step further. I was
Mhm.
going to Kenya to see this project.
Yeah.
Now, as a teacher, I know nothing about water projects in other countries. And as we were sitting at lunch, I said, how am I going to know if this is even a good project? How
Yeah,
am I really going to know, did this do something for this community?
absolutely.
And he said, well, you have to have a water technician go with you. I was like, well, how do I do that in Kenya, a place that I don't have any contacts other than local people?
Yeah.
And he pulled out his phone, the day when our phones were really old, flip phones or whatever. And he gave me the number of a couple of organizations that save the children, and
Yes.
big organizations. He said, call and see if they'll send somebody with you to look at this project. Well, you can imagine how that went. I'd call and people would say, no, we don't have somebody to go look at one project. And I
Yeah.
get it. They have to have share their expenses with lots of different projects. And I called him back, and I've met this man for like an hour for lunch. And I called him back and I said, David, I struck out there. Do you have any other suggestions of how I can come back to my school and tell those kids the project was worth it? And he said, well, you need to hire a water technician to go with you. And he said, there's many universities in Nairobi. There's certainly a water hydrologist that would go with you, and I'm going to send you $1,000 to pay for it.
Oh my gosh.
So I hunted around, found a group called the Kenya Rainwater Association, and arranged for them to have a person that was going to go with me for 3 days to look at some projects, to look at that project. And then he asked, could I identify a couple more because he could put some money into doing a couple more projects. He was hooking me in to get it
Yes, he
done.
was. He was stitching you right into the
He really
fabric.
was. And so, fast forward, I saw this project. It was beautiful. The community did just a heartwarming celebration. And I saw the difference and learned a little bit about water in their community at that time. And we identified the water technician with me. We went to 2 schools in the area. We hadn't done a school project. We did the river. So I wanted to focus on schools. So we went to the 2 neighboring schools and she designed what it would take to bring water and toilets to those schools. So get back to the US and I meet again with my friend David and another woman from the Kind World Foundation, which was Gateway Computers. And she said, we both would like to give you some funds to help you start this, but you have to be a nonprofit. I didn't even know what a nonprofit did.
Yes, of
And I
course.
had to practice saying 501c3 because
Yes.
I just would get confused. And she'd say, well, think of Star Wars and C3PO. Okay, 501c3. So I at least had the language in my brain.
Yeah.
And my nephew is an attorney, so he helped with the paperwork. And by August of this happened all through the summer. By August, we were ready to go with some projects. And again, David ran an organization called Water Advocates in Washington, D.C. And
Ah,
their organization worked with Congress to get them to dedicate Water for the Poor Act for the world and worked really hard to get these projects going. And the UN had just come out with their sustainable development goals, and water and sanitation was very high on the list. And through, again, David's advice, I felt like a little puppet, just going directions because I didn't know what I was doing. He
yeah.
said, he said, I would recommend you do school to school projects. It makes sense for
Yes.
kids in schools to partner with a school somewhere in the world. And so we joined what was part of a 10,000 school initiative to get school projects done. We were one organization that joined this
Yeah.
and started working on water projects. And I would stand in lines on airplanes going places and talk to people. In those days, you could stand in line in the bathroom. Now you can't.
Yes,
And I talked
exactly.
to people. If they were a teacher, I'd say, hey, have you ever thought of doing a water project? And so that first year, my goal was to get 10 projects funded. And I
Yes.
found 16 teachers from across the country that would do one. So that was how we started. Just very simple, getting these projects. And the advice that David gave that was probably the best thing ever was that I knew nothing about water. There was no way that I was going to design a water project and run it. It was
Sure.
to work with non governmental organizational partners. And of course, he worked with all of them. So he recommended some of the best organizations that today we still work with that have boots on the ground. They give us the price of a project. We put that on our website. Schools choose a project. We raise the money. The money goes to the project. Our NGO partners get the work done. And not only that, but he said, make sure your kids aren't raising all the funds for the project because the community must have skin in the game that's getting the project. So part of the funds for the project have to come from the local community where the school is based. And they do that by providing in-kind labor, materials, resources, and monetary buy-in as well. Because if they don't have buy-in from the beginning, we're not going to go back and fix them. They have to own the project.
There you go. There you
Yeah.
go.
And so we've actually moved from those first years of requiring half the project costs coming from the local community
Wow.
to still having that skin in the game, but also most of our projects now are fee based. That there has to be some fees that the community agrees to pay once the project's done. Otherwise, you can't fix anything. If you don't have any money in the bank or
Mm.
in somebody's pocket,
Yes.
projects aren't going to get fixed. So we work with lots of groups that build what they call village savings and loan programs.
I was going to say,
And
yeah.
yeah, they work and they call them different things in every community. That's just the one title that sticks to my mind. But
Yes.
they work with the community to set up a group that's going to manage those funds. And it's either monthly, however they want to collect the fees, but every family in the community has to put in small fees that go into the bucket. And if there's a problem that needs to be fixed, they have fees available. And they also can start then a program where they can lend money within their community and pay it
Right now.
back. So
Right
that's
now.
also raising economic development. So this has gone from just getting clean water to people to water sanitation and hygiene to creating really some economic growth for communities.
I mean, I got goosebumps. For our listeners and viewers, if we rewind back to one of the first statements Patty made, you made, Patty, that someone said to the school principal or someone in the school, now I'm fading out on who it was, said, well, you could try it.
Right.
Try. Try. I like to expunge the word try from my vocabulary because try connotes failure. He tried to win the race. She
Right.
tried to drop the weight, and it's typically like not a favorable outcome. And it really typically is said with that same kind of non-committal, all right, give it a whirl, right? But they didn't know who they were speaking with.
Well,
They
I don't think that people realized how powerful it was to put a project in the hands of kids
right
that
now,
made them look outside of themselves.
right now.
Every time kids were asked to raise funds in schools, typically it was for something for them. Band uniforms, new equipment for the field, we need this, we need that. This gave kids a chance to do something different. And I think they really embraced that. And they were so proud of it. And we tried, we did pen pal letters with the
I
school
was gonna
because it was
say,
in
talk to us
Chris's
about
village.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And we found that we couldn't do that sustainably across every school because, number one, kids don't have paper
Yes.
available.
Oh,
There's no postage available in these schools. This was way before internet was connected like it is today. So we had to be really careful that we were not putting too much on the local community, global community either, because they didn't have the resources to do that. But we did successfully exchange pen pal letters with Cthulhu School. And I can tell you that I had students carry those letters in their pockets for weeks. They just were so amazed that they were communicating with somebody in Kenya, which seems so far away and so different. And again, as a teacher, I didn't want to raise a group of mini fundraisers. That was not the goal. And I was wanting to really be careful of looking at what is the impact on my students because I'm a teacher. And so if there was no impact there other than getting kids to raise funds, I probably would have never done project number two.
Yeah.
But the changes I saw in kids and the things that we could bring into our curriculum just by adding this extra little thing, when you think of the music, the art, the
Yeah.
history lessons, talking about things, it was amazing. And I've got a couple really good examples. One that has stuck with me forever. And we had a young boy, an eighth grader, transfer to our school. He'd been kicked out of his school for whatever and dressed in black, head to toe, the days of the goth. And he was just very unconnected. And I was in a math class supporting some other students. And every day I'd say, David, do you need any help with your math? And it would be just like, no, I don't need any help. And just very little communication. But I could see he was a sideline learner, kind of watching what other kids were doing and just not participating, but keeping his eyes on things. And towards the end of the year, we were having this celebratory event called a hat day.
Yes.
where kids could wear a hat, or a strange hat, wear their hair any way they wanted, pay $1 at the door when they came in the school, and that was going to be our final fundraising push.
Oh,
And about a week and a half before that event, he came up and he said, "Hey, Ms. Hall, do you need any posters for that hat day?" And I said, "Oh, David, that would be awesome." Well, who knew what a great artist this young man was? He made the most beautiful signs, and I made sure they were hung right in front where kids walked into the school.
oh, wow.
And I'd see him walk in and kind of glance at that. And the best thing was on hat day, he wore a hat. And that was
Oh my
makes me still
gosh.
cry today.
Oh,
That
I'm
was that was the first connection I really saw him make with other kids and in our school. And that was probably in April of that year. So we didn't have a long time to go till June to finish that. But I just saw a change in his whole demeanor. And he left eighth grade to go to ninth grade. And the next year came back and volunteered at our school paper. So it was life changing for him.
oh,
And
I'm
I saw that with other kids that just came out of their shells because they were included. And that was the one thing we told our eighth graders who were running the project, because the teachers didn't decide the activities. We had a group of eighth grade kids who volunteered to run this whole project. And we said everything has to be inclusive. It can't be too expensive so that every kid needs to be able to play. So,
love.
and I didn't know what we were going to do for things, but the kids said before Thanksgiving, they said, let's do nickel Monday, dime Tuesday, quarter Wednesday, and see what we get, because Thursday was Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And so I gave each, it had to be fair. We were going to have an ice cream party for the class that raised the most per capita. So I had to give each class a big Ziploc bag so that we can figure out per kid which raised the most. And when they came on Wednesday, kids were dragging down bags filled with coins and money, and they raised $1,700 in those 3 days. And I thought, I think we're going to make it to 3,500.
Oh,
I
Patty.
was just really surprised. But then kids did. I had another couple girls come up and show me these little beaded angels that they made in Girl Scouts and sold them one year. And they said, could we sell some of these in the lunchroom and donate the proceeds? They made over $2,000 on those angels,
Oh,
selling them at lunch. And kids just kept doing that. Piano concerts where they charged for people to come and watch, dances, different things. And we did a walk for water with the whole school engaged, where kids carried a gallon of water for 3 miles and donated what they could and collected donations. And it was just an all school event.
all school, all community, um, all their life. Yeah, I was so intrigued with your website. 30 fundraising ideas to get you started. Walk for water, sell H2O for life t-shirts, drop in the wishing well, watercolor paint and learn, water drop pledge wall, Valentine's Day candygrams, water crisis teach-in, sustainable fashion clothing swap, Mother's Day plant sale, rock for water, coffee for water, lemonade stands, make it rain dodgeballs, school-wide water fairs, water poem school book zine. What is that?
Oh, I don't even remember. There's so many
Okay.
things kids, and the fun thing is that schools share their pictures and their stories with us. So we always get new things. Like one day these kids sent some pictures where in their lunchroom they sold duct tape. You could buy certain strips of duct tape for a certain amount of money. And a teacher stood on a chair and they taped him to the wall.
Oh,
And they kept collecting the tape until they could pull the chair out and the teacher's taped to the wall. I mean, kids are creative. It was hilarious. They said a picture of, they had two teachers they were doing this with, sitting with duct tape to their wall after the lunchroom, and it raised a lot of money. It was
hello.
just amazing. And kids think of goofy things to do. And fortunately, teachers are really good hearted and are willing to be the pawn in all of these events with the pies and the faces and the different things that happen.
Oh, right now, right now. This is the thing. This was the Genesis, Patty, and we're all feeling viscerally like we're there and dipping in many of these. And I appreciate your storytelling of the series of events, especially those which of course involve the kids. And you had this is, I mean, I was raised on a farm. You planted seeds. You
Right.
planted so many seeds. Like I kind of want to know now where that young man is that was not so communicative and then finally said to you, Miss Hall, This is all, can you need any signs did you follow him? Do you know where he is now?
Well, I know he went through high school and went on to a tech school. From there, I really lost contact with him. But it is amazing how many students that I still do keep in touch with from those early years. Because I only was in the school the first year and then I stayed for 2 more years because I figured if I was going to ask other teachers to do this, I had to have done it. And I had to have done it a couple of times. It was much more real that I could go to a teacher convention and say, I've
I,
done this. And
yeah.
it wasn't that hard. It's about getting the kids motivated.
It wasn't that hard. I can't even imagine the hours. So under your leadership, H2O for Life has raised millions of dollars. I have the figure here in another sentence or so, involving more than 800,000 youth. And I'm sure it's ballooned since I got this stat in
Right.
active service learning, supporting over 1,000 global partner schools. I don't know if you guys understand this. The severity of the water situation in Africa in general is not to be understated. Women start in the early morning and they trek to the water source with their baskets and so forth, and they get the water, muddy as it is, and they carry it on their heads back almost the entire day. A great part of the waking hours is getting water. And so fixing this, bringing what, and then bringing water and toilets to the schools. Like I was on a mission trip and we went to 6 refugee camps. And beforehand, I actually kind of joined in this trip, and literally I was getting a visa and so forth. I mean, I made the decision to go on this trip less than 2 weeks from the departure date. So you imagine I was fast tracking everything. I went to the local medical supply place and I said, I'm going to Africa and I'm going to I want to know, can you give me wholesale prices? And he did. So, I mean, I just scarfed together $3,000 of my own money. Didn't even have time to ask friends. And I went with 2 huge duffel bags filled with $3,000 of wholesale pricing, supplies and so forth. And these refugee camps, wow, I mean, we think of whatever we're seeing on a projection from media. I mean, I talked with a woman, she was born in a refugee camp.
Yeah.
She then,
Yeah, they don't stay there for a short time. They stay there for years and years and years.
and they work hard. And this woman worked 3 jobs in order to raise her 3 daughters. Her husband and son were killed in the Eritrean War, pretty typical. Um, but I don't know, what was your finding? Hopefully, the girls are actually being taught now, because when I was there, it was so hot by noon, the teachers either couldn't sustain themselves. And so the boys got the school in the morning and the girls did not get school. And so we went with supplies and pencils and erasers and tablets, and we were teaching those girls in the afternoon. Yes, we were. So were you sensing that it was more participatory for girls to have schooling?
Well, I have a picture on my wall, but unfortunately, I don't know. It's so I probably can't really see that. But anyway, it was my go-to picture of this young gal. I walked down by the stream in my friend Christopher's community, and I ran into these 4 young gals gathering water from the pond. And it was 10 o'clock in the morning, so other kids were in school, and they were gathering water, and right next to them were 2 cows in the water. So you know that that water is not going to be clean, drinkable water. And I mean, that was kind of that moment where I just went, oh my gosh, this is just not okay for that to be happening. And you're exactly right that anytime that water was needed for the school, the girls were asked to leave class, walk down to the river, bring buckets up. If they were having any food at the school, the girls would be getting the water. They would be bringing water to wash up things at the end of the day. It was just a girls' and women's job. And by providing water and sanitation at schools, it has truly transformed the education. And I think I work a lot in East Africa, so I'm much more familiar with East Africa than any place else in Africa. But I think the emphasis of even the governments on having water and sanitation in schools has really been an uptick. So
Yeah.
it is happening. But you'd go into rural schools, and on the wall would be the tag board attendance of all the kids in the school and showing how girls missed more days of school than boys, especially once they hit puberty, if there was not a bathroom available, or
Absolutely.
they would just drop out.
Absolutely.
So, tracking these statistics over the years since 2010, when the UN really put the sustainable goals in place, the educational impact on girls has increased tremendously. And, the statistics show that if you educate a girl, more money comes into that community because they
Oh,
tend to stay in their communities and do jobs in their communities and bring money back, where the men have to leave the communities for work most times.
yeah.
So it truly does change things. And um, we work with a school in Kibera slums in Kenya through a very dear friend of mine, Kennedy O'Dady, who started a school for girls. And they take the poorest of the poor in the slums and educate them. And we've helped them with some of their water sources in the community. And I visited Kibera this summer when I went, and just saw the growth and everything that's happened because they've provided basic facilities for people. So fast forward, and I'm helping a friend of mine from Ghana move her daughter into Carleton College in Minnesota, about an hour from my house. And we run into some girls on campus, and one of the girls is from Kenya. And I said, "Oh my gosh, where are you from in Kenya?" She said, "Well, I lived in Kibera." And I said, "Did you go to Kennedy O'Dady's Shafco schools?" And she said, "Yes, I am one of his girls." And here is this young gal who grew up in a slum and is now going to one of the highest rated
I,
colleges in the United States at Carleton, small liberal arts, wonderful college. And it was just amazing, amazing to see that connection and how that education is changing that girl's life. And Kennedy asks all girls that once they leave to go to college to come back and spend at least 2 years giving back to Kenya before they do something else. So they're sharing their knowledge, they're sharing what's happened to them because of a chance to have education. And I think that's what, for me, drove me the most was the school to school connection, is
absolutely.
that making this difference in schools really changes things.
Yeah.
I also took a group this summer and we went back to Kathungu Village to see the school. And the group with me, I brought my brother with, who I've been asking to go with me for 20 years, and he finally went. And they were absolutely astounded because we've done more than one project at this school. We put in water, toilets, they've added a boarding school facility, which brings money to run the school. And it's just transformed the school from being one of the poorest performing schools in their area to number one. And the rate of kids now going on to secondary schools in that small rural farming community has just risen tremendously. So water kind of starts everything. I mean, when we can't do much without water. And
We,
then you add the sanitation. Again, people in the sector of water call it the three-legged stool. You need water, you need toilets, and you need hygiene education, because
yes,
without all three, it just collapses. So it's all about that training.
completely. I continue to say, and I've read thousands and thousands of books. Muhammad Yunus's Banker to the Poor was one of the five most influential books in my life. Of course, he went on to get Nobel Peace Prize and so forth, and talked about the micro lending in these communities from women getting together and women getting together in secret, Patty. You know this
Right, right,
because they would be killed by their husbands or otherwise damaged and abused in order to put in and to receive. There's like generally five or six, as I recall, in these groups, small little groups. And boy, there was no fallout. Well, you're in that group. You're committed to that group. And so this week, woman A gets the $5, whatever it is,
right,
in order to buy a thermometer so that she can sell pasteurized milk, because that makes the whole big difference, obviously. Or a different sum to buy a cow or something. And the repayment of these loans back into the pool was just like, yeah, like it was 100% unless the woman died. I mean, that was just how
right.
committed these women were. And I also remember segments in there where Muhammad Yunus was talking about everyone was searching for water, and men would go out and with these big machines and so forth and so on, say, there's no water here. And the women would gather together, and the spiritual element of it just chokes me up. Somebody would have a sense, like God-given intuition, whatever. Wait, there's water here. Did they have tools? Did they have machinery? No. Spoons. They dug into the earth with spoons and found water. So to give women this kind of financial empowerment, this kind of bonding with the United States school, and to generate the enthusiasm that clearly you generated with these your first school and these myriad schools that followed, I was just not just, I was sitting here thinking, of course, everybody wants to be, it was a FOMO thing. I mean, you gave such import to this project and the potential. The art teacher and the everybody wants to come on board and make this thing a huge success. And it was nothing short of that. This is, I'm so indebted to you for this work.
Oh, well, I'm so indebted to teachers. People say to us, "How many volunteers do you have?" Because we don't have a large organization. We have to fundraise, obviously, to run operations and get curriculum out to schools because we provide curriculum on the global water crisis. But we have like 4 people in our office. But our volunteers are the teachers across the United States and elsewhere that motivate their kids. I mean, teachers are amazing and what they can do to get kids excited about doing something and about changing the world. And I look at this as we're raising a generation of global citizens who are going to change the world.
Right now, right now.
And you have to give kids that experience to see that there are things that they can do that are greater than themselves, and it isn't just about buying a new band instrument. It's about really changing lives for people.
Yeah, yeah. And the camaraderie that you built as well. I mean, yes, the mission, a number one. The camaraderie where this young boy kicked out of a different school for, disciplinary, whatever, not fitting in. Clearly, no one was seeing him, or he did not feel seen. And of course, that leads to him being more withdrawn. For him to approach you, that so speaks volumes for you, Patty, that you're that approachable in this endeavor and in life in general, that this child would come out of dare to come out of his shell. I don't this I'm just waxing on because I am so moved to the core by that one story, which is one story amidst
Mhm.
others. Um, this
Well,
that
I would think it would be hard to find any teacher that's worth their salt that hasn't had multiple stories where they know they've changed the lives of kids, because that's why we're in teaching, is
Yeah.
that we want to do that. And this project, I always believed in service learning because I worked with kids with disabilities, and I was always looking for ways for those kids to be involved directly in school, community, whatever. And it's just, to me, it's such a no-brainer to get kids involved in doing service. I think that it's lacking a bit in homes these days, and kids really do need to understand that giving back is important.
Giving back is, I mean, that's the boomerang of life. That's the life flow. I mean, energy, money, water, blood. I mean, if we stop the flow, if you will, that energy flow, and then the money flow that is the tool to buy these resources, then it's curtains. um the whole wash, and I love the way you put it, water, toilets, and hygiene. Wash, it stands for water, sanitation, and hygiene, right? Obviously.
Yep.
uh
Mhm.
I love these acronyms. So you started in Highview Middle School in Minnesota. So anybody that's in Minnesota, look up Highview Middle School. That was the genesis of Patty's involvement and spearheading this and raising all of this awareness and the funds, of course. There are so many stats from which I've gathered data. 586,000 international students gaining access to water in their schools, raising and matching more than 4 million with NGO partners. The global impact exceeds 8 million, and I suspect that stat is old. Nearly
Yeah.
1 million students participating in HGO life activities in their schools. And now you have 10 fellows. By 2025. You're growing to 42 fellows, mentoring the next cohort. Um, Fundraising over 135,000 raised in the 2024-2025 year-end campaign. This these schools and these children here and in Kenya uh, are clearly ambassadors for a new earth, a new world in which we are cooperative rather than um, separated. And I'm praying every day for us to be less separated here in the United States of America, for sure. I think we have a massive responsibility, and I believe that we need some more leadership to bring that up and not to have it squelched. Um, The total support raised and matched exceeds $8 million for WASH projects. So the whole list, I suspect this is, yeah, I think I got this from your website, 30 fundraising activities. Some of them are very, very fun. I'm just having fun reading the titles of them. And then you can find materials for fundraising at the H2O for Life online store or with partners like Contigo glass straws and Dedonamy water bottles. I suspect I'm mispronouncing it. Obviously, I bought I hiked Kilimanjaro. I crested Kilimanjaro, I'm happy to say. But
I
we
did too.
love that. We
Yeah.
had water bottles that you could put literally, water that cows had stomped in and defecated in, and you could drink it and it would be fine. And they were, kind of expensive. Talk to us about these how do you say it? Didamy water bottles?
Well, yeah, there's so many versions of bottles out there now that filter water
Okay.
that sometimes people want to give us a little support to put them on our website,
Yeah,
which is
okay, fair enough.
kind of
So
always looking for that. But there's a lot of ways to purify water, but truly you have to have facilities on the school grounds because just having a water bottle doesn't really cut it for everything that needs to be done. I mean, I remember going into schools, just something as simple as teaching a school, and this was years ago, to put a waste can in a classroom because there wasn't any. Kids just would peel a banana and throw it on the floor, papers crumpled up. Guess somebody at the end of the day cleaned it up, probably the girls.
yeah.
But it was just simple hygiene training too. That's so important in schools. The washing of hands. It's like if you don't have a clean bucket and you're getting clean water, your water is no longer clean. It's just all the training that goes with it. And the NGO partners we work with are just experts in that of getting community really indoctrinated, educated about why it's so important to have the hygiene training along with the water and sanitation. It's a big piece of it.
Absolutely. And we're delighted to say and report that the White Bear Lake area schools named Patty to their wall of fame for her leadership and impact as a teacher and nonprofit founder. The Rotary Club of White Bear Lake, where she's participated and been featured in events focused on community service and youth engagement, have recognized her repeatedly. The children partnerships and collaborative recognition from groups like Children Performing Arts Minnesota for co-producing educational initiatives tied to H2O from Life's mission and implementing focus on a cause clean water using educational musical plays to raise awareness, and various schools and districts in Minnesota, such as Highview Middle School in Mounds View and Matoska International School, actively partnering in H2O for Life service training projects and water fundraising efforts. So you've been recognized, and yet not so much as everyone's appreciation that have been involved in these projects firsthand, and then those of us who are lucky enough to hear these stories about it. I've got to think there are people in our group that want to be in touch with you, learn how they can get involved if they're still involved in teaching, how they can impact their students, schools, communities. How can people reach you, Patty, in order to further your mission and this project?
Well, you can always reach me through the H2O for Life Schools.org website because my
Okay,
email's on there. And, pick up the phone and give me a call. I don't know if you'll have my information printed anywhere, but
we will.
always happy to talk to new people. And if anybody works for a corporation or some type of a entity that supports the global goals and water is one of their spheres, love to talk to you because fundraising is hard and we have to fundraise for operations as well. Every penny that kids raise goes to projects. We've been advised multiple times that we need to take a percentage of those funds to put into our overhead. And I've just said no, because I know that I had students in my school that putting in a dime was maybe all they could afford, but they got to be part of the project. And to me, it's about using those kids' funds where they want it to go, which is to totally support water and sanitation.
So you're volunteer, you're donating, you're getting other people to donate to cover the operating costs.
Right, right. We have some corporate sponsors, some foundation sponsors, but of course, with COVID hitting, everybody took a hit. And now I think just with the general state of affairs in our country, it's really hard to get some of those things going these days. So we'd appreciate any support, and I think it's a great cause. And I did it totally for love. I never took a salary. I worked as the executive director for 15 years. and put my heart and soul into it and loved every minute of it. And I would do it again.
Oh my gosh. Well, we will put these contact information in the show notes, www.h and the number two, H2O for lifeschools.org. And the O is not a zero, right? It's an O.
And the four is an FOR, not the number four.
Thank you. Yeah, well, all right.
Yeah.
And then go ahead and give us the phone number that people can reach you because some people might be so excited.
Sure. I'd love to have phone calls. 651 303 7763. You know, and it's funny because I was so lucky to be featured in Reader's Digest just randomly. And then that led to being on the Today Show. And that's what opened H2O for Life, I think, to move across the United States. Because that'd be really hard for me at one school to reach all these people. But once those two things came out, and then PBS had a story on us a couple of years back, which re energizes things. So it's that national input that really has helped us move along.
And I'm remiss in not mentioning that. I read it and I'm looking through my notes. Wow. Okay. So the Today Show, Reader's Digest. Yes. Thank you very much. Excellent. And then the Today Show and PBS. Tell us the other things because boy, I'm
Well,
remiss.
PBS is the most recent national
Yeah.
public thing that went out, and that is a really good video. It was one of those things where the skies aligned because the school that raised funds for a project in Uganda was in White Bear Lake. The NGO partner who is from Uganda happened to be visiting me in White Bear Lake. And Fred D. San Lazaro, who works for PBS, lives in St. Paul. So he came out to my house randomly at the last minute and did this whole thing on all the collaborations between schools, international, our organization making it all happen. And it's a really great video. You know, we were
What,
lucky to have that. Yeah.
what's the name of that, Patty?
You just would have to look at PBS and the global water crisis, and it would pop up.
We'll do
It's on
just
YouTube.
yeah.
I could
We'll
send you a YouTube link. Link.
That'll be great, and we'll put that in the show notes as well. Oh, this has been rich beyond words. I am completely humbled to hear snippets of the story. We've just touched the tip of the iceberg in terms of the impact, and I suspect they'll never be able to capture the impact of such a worthwhile goal because when children get involved and they get excited about something, this really compounds, I like to say, in a way that most of the traditional aspects of people's activities fall short. And so I'm really happy that you're involving kids, and I'm very, very happy that you're involving the communities and that you've gotten such good participation. And I invite each of us to double down on our commitment to the work of tireless volunteers like Patty Hall. They are absolute angels in human form, in my humble, and I am appreciative of the dedication, the tenacity that you have shown over the decades here in serving people literally worldwide in something as magnificent as supplying clean water. These sand dams, I'm going to look all this stuff up. This is amazing. So
You
thank you.
learn as you go. You learn as you go.
You learn, and that's a real teacher for you right there. And when you learn, and then you teach the students and the communities, and that's exactly how things mushroom to the extent that they have such powerful impact. Patty, we're grateful, each of us. I will say a collective thank you. And what's next for you?
Well, I still stay connected with H2O for Life, of course. We hired an executive director because I figured it was time to pass it on and have somebody else do that. And my son is the director of schools, so he handles all the school and NGO partnerships. But I'm now in Rotary, so I'm a Rotarian.
Love.
And I've probably, along with my Rotary groups, we've done probably over $1 million worth of water projects through our club now
Oh
and
my
things. And so if any of you are Rotarians out there, I've got a great way to connect your Rotary youth to your projects to help you raise funds too. So love to talk to anybody who's interested in water.
Well, we'd love to have you just drip into our We Can Do It Women Facebook group with these kinds of updates because that's the exact point of a community.
Well,
So
I'm going to go sign up on it today. We Do It Women Facebook.
We can do it, women.
Do It Women Facebook.
Go
Okay.
right to Facebook. We can do it, women
Okay.
60 plus community. Although we have women of all ages, I probably just pull that 60 out of there, but we can do it, women Facebook community. And we are forever challenged now to take our stand in terms of finding new dollars to commit, and not just our own donations, although that's important, yet for us to leverage those connections that we have, those corporations that will readily match worthy projects such as this. So I want everybody to put their thinking cap on as to how we can further.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, that, that would be wonderful because, fundraising is always hard. And fortunately, we don't have to have a huge budget to fund our operations.
yeah.
But, it's getting to conferences and getting kids engaged and getting teachers. And I'll tell you, some of those teachers that I've met once personally, maybe never, have become some of my best friends. They're just amazing, amazing people.
Wow, this is, as I say, rich beyond words. And Patty Hall, we thank you, we honor you, we celebrate you, and send you great energy and prayers as you move forward in your life, because you are definitely a mover and a shaker. So thank you for joining us on the
Well,
week.
thank you for the opportunity. It was delightful to meet you.
Indeed. So for our viewers, remember, I see you, I value you, and your greatest chapter is just beginning. If today's episode sparks something in you, I invite you to pursue your next chapter. Get out of that sideline and into the spotlight. Every little bit helps in making our world a more welcoming and loving place, because that is what the world needs now, in my opinion. And so I invite you to pay attention to your money and where it goes, and to route it to organizations as worthy as H2O for life. And you can catch that in the show notes. Until next time, be safe, be wise, and be happy.
Thanks again. Bye.